Hello, we're live and welcome everybody. This is the first of two sessions we're having this week in celebration of Pride Month. And as I've said in my LinkedIn posts, what I did not want to do was make any assumptions that the individuals on my panels for these are DEI experts in any way at all, just because of who they are. So what we're going to have instead is what I call a lived experience conversation. And I have some lovely questions to ask everybody about their own experiences of working in HR as an LGBTQIA plus professional. I'm not going to trip over that. I'm going to get that right. I always get the plus wrong, weirdly. I get the letters right, but I always miss the plus out. So do you want to introduce yourself? I'll go around my screen the way that I can see you. So Jon Mannion.
Thank you very much.
Two Johns today, so
I know that's going to be confusing, that is, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm Jon Mannion. I'm a HR manager working in the education sector. Interestingly, I work with a fantastic group of schools within a diocesan mat, so we're linked to the church, and I've been out and proud since a very young age, as I'm sure you can imagine. I have a loving partner and we have a dog because it's far easier than children.
What kind of dog?
So a little sprocker. He's a sprocker. He's more Springer than he is Cocker, but he's as mad as anything, and we rescued him at 6 months old, and we're his fourth home. And I'm very, very excited to be here. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you. And also thank you for stepping in at such short notice, because unfortunately the lovely Claire Lowry Hubble is unwell right now, and Jon has stepped in to cover today at 2 hours notice, I think it wasn't maybe three. Yeah. So thank you. Very grateful for that. Charlie, you're up next.
Hi, my name's Charlie Hart. I'm also known as Awesome Charlie with an AU for autistic. I have a 20-year career as an HR analyst, but over the last 2 years, I've been self-employed, and I'm a speaker about inclusion, mostly neurodiversity inclusion, but also LGBT and intersecting experiences. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them.
Wonderful. And John-Earl, do I call you John-Earl?
It might be easier for this podcast. I mean, I'll answer to most things, especially if it involves sort of food or drink. But yeah, no, call me John or John-Earl, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
So I don't have that much experience within HR. I'm relatively new to role, so I have just under 3 years experience in HR. However, I have lots of sort of pre-management experience, so I've kind of done HR on the other side of things. I am married. I've been married for 11 years. Be 12, I think. I'm probably going to get that wrong, but I think it's 12 in August. And I came out probably when I was quite late, probably 17, 18. So yeah, quite later on in life.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome to all three of you. John,
I totally missed the LGBT part.
You did actually, didn't you? Yeah. And I just thought, well, I'm not going to push it. You can say what you want.
Yeah, so I'm bisexual and pansexual. I can make both descriptors fit, depending how you define them, and gender non-conforming.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask you, John, I'll start with you because it's a more of a recent one, but tell us a little bit about your HR journey. What drew you to working HR in the first place? And are there any ways that your identity has shaped that journey or not shaped that journey?
I would say it hasn't shaped that journey. I do think there are situations where it helps within working within HR, certainly having a better understanding of kind of a minority background. I have had experiences of people that have come to me because of that and have felt comfortable talking to me about different things because of that. But no, I mean, I got into HR just because I like people. I've worked in many different organisations, large and small. Many different experiences, some really, really good HR teams, some not so good HR teams. But people have always said to me, you'd be good in HR. You're really good with people, and you get that people aspect. And I think there has been, for quite some time, there's been a gap around HR. I think it's kind of been all process driven and not really people friendly. So I was hoping to kind of come in and make a change. And then subsequently, I found out that there's lots of sort of pro people, which is really, really good and it kind of fits where I am. Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Charlie? Tell us about your HR journey.
Yeah. quite by mistake. So I didn't know I was autistic and ADHD when I was younger, and I ended up flunking university quite drastically and having quite a checkered career. And then quite by chance, I got a temping job in HR at Barclays Bank. And there I helped them with the systems and projects side of HR and found my niche as an HR systems analyst. So I was really lucky I found a job that suited my neurotype, but I'd never felt like one of the girls, you know, the kind of gendered HR experience where you're expected to be warm and fluffy and diplomatic and have high emotional intelligence and all that. Never really fitted me, being autistic and gender non-conforming.
I can understand that. Yeah. How about you, John?
It's a bit of a theme here, but I think I fell into HR purely through accident, if I'm honest. So I was in education and working within a secondary setting, and had a relationship breakup and stuff, and then ended up having a agreement with the school to move on, you know, and stuff, and then ended up working for a charity in HR with one of our close friends, because we are connected through Anna Ferguson. So, yeah, the lady professor, Anna Ferguson, as I like to call her, because she's the font of everything. Literally, we were in a meeting together, and I'd asked her about this role that was available and just thought, you know, oh, maybe, you know, it's something I can do to fill a gap, really, and help out. We were in a meeting together, and she very much clearly said after the meeting, I want you to come and work for me. And so sort of fell into it, literally fell into it. And I've loved it ever since, really. I think the ability to, like John said, you know, to be the person that people come to and to help is something that drives me forward every day.
I love that. It's amazing how many people fell into HR, actually.
I wonder why I've done that. I'm crazy, clearly, because I've chosen to go into it.
Yeah.
I think quite a few people that want to get into it and are struggling to find their entry-level role. So it's weird, really.
It is. And I think it's changed, actually, over time. Like when I left school in the dark ages, there were no degrees in HR back then. People can actually do degrees in HR now and have been able to for some time. So it's, it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's an interesting one. John, I'll stay with you. Can you share a time when being LGBT made your work experience in HR either easier or more challenging?
I could give you examples of both, but I want to go down the easier route because I think it's really powerful. And so I am the menopause champion for my organisation.
Yeah, oh, I love that.
Love that.
And the ability for a man, in any sense of the term, to be able to go in and address an issue that affects so many people and them feel safe. And I genuinely believe it's because I'm from the LGBTQ plus community. Absolutely. And it's not a problem to talk and laugh about it. It's not a problem to talk and cry about it and to go, actually, I'm really struggling. And it stems from a real personal issue. My sister had a horrendous time at the start of menopause. Now, hers was a surgical menopause, but it was horrendous. And then to sit there as a HR manager for a large employer where their workforce is 98% female and 70% are in that window, I just thought, what are we doing? And we're not. You know, and this is a great organisation where we think about stuff really well, and we had things, but did they actually have an impact? Did they talk to people and say this is how to support? Everybody's an individual, and it follows exactly the same line as every other EDI factor, really. But you know, and it is about the individual, and it is about sitting down and finding out what's great for them. And, you know, in exactly the same as, you know, you would for any other member of staff with any other medical condition or any other, you know, type of situation that they're in. You know, it's just about talking to people. But it's certainly made it a lot easier, you know, to stand at the water cooler in the staff room and go, how are you? No, actually, how are you? Come on, let's talk. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. Because there's no threat there, especially when the workforce is predominantly female. There's no threat there. That's how they feel. Now, obviously, I've never had that chat with the male member staff, but I would like to think as well that I'm an extremely approachable person. That's not down to my sexuality. Of course it's not. It's down to me as a person.
Of course,
But, you know, the ability to connect, like John said, with another group of people that are seen as a minority in certain circumstances helps you in that empathy, that emotional intelligence factor, you know, all those types of things, you know. And I cover a really multicultural and, you know, hugely diverse organization that, you know, delivers amazing things. And it's, you know, I'm quite proud of it. But I'm proud to be me at my organisation. And this is probably the first organisation where I've truly been me. I've not hidden. And I think one of the things that lots of us forget, being from the LGBTQ plus community, is that pretty much every day I come out. Every day we're asked, and it's exactly the same as not having children, you know, and things like that. But, you know, the amount of times I'll get asked, what's your partner's name? What does she do?
Yeah.
You know, and does she like deal with all the children? Because you obviously do a lot of hours and stuff like that. And you know, to say, well, actually she is he, and the children is a dog. Thanks. You know, it's one of those things that automatically happens, and I'm going to shut up in a minute, but you know, lots of people just presume, and you know what? I don't have a problem with that. It's absolutely fine that people presume, but it takes additional energy in certain circumstances, you know, and it, you know, it can make you think: am I in a safe environment to be able to say, you know, my partner is a man? And I know that's really weird. And to people who are really open and transparent and understand the importance of equality, diversity and inclusion. And, you know, Charlie talked about her pronouns, and I probably should have said mine, Maya, he, him, you know, but, you know, even the pronoun thing, you know, some people have a real issue with it, but actually it's just about making people comfortable, you know, and I don't understand hardly any of the letters in the LGBTQ plus thing, you know, and just because I'm a G, I don't get the rest of it. I'll be honest. You know, I'm a bit of a blinkered person in that sense myself. But if somebody wants to be called they, them, if somebody wants to be called Sharon instead of Steve, if somebody wants to live their life in a different way, the philosophy I have is the same as Miriam Morgoyle's, in the fact of, if it makes them happy, why wouldn't I?
Yeah,
exactly that.
But I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, that was really interesting what you were saying. The whole being able to feel like you can be yourself at work for whatever reason is not something that people can take for granted. And it's not just because of sexuality or gender identity. There are so many different aspects of people's lives, personalities, who they are, that they don't feel able to fully express at work. And when you actually think about it, if you were to make a list, like, there must only be about 7 people out there who do fit the mold of, you know, what everybody expects them to be. Unfortunately,
a societal normal person.
Yeah, I mean, there must, or maybe there's like 23 or something. But you know, it doesn't. It feels like I don't know. I mean, maybe I think I am drawn to people who don't automatically fit in that box, and certainly with the work I'm doing with Evolving HR. It's the people that have had to mask, that have had to pretend. Those are the ones I want to talk to. Those are the people that I want to give a platform to. She says, talking too much and really ought to shut up and give the platform to the people. But it's, I find it really interesting that, I mean, most of the people that do fit in that kind of normal are running all the companies that we're all working for. So I think it's probably why it is. But, anyway. Yeah. Charlie, how about you? Has there been a time when being part of the LGBT community has made your work experience easier or has made it more challenging?
Yeah. So since I got diagnosed autistic in 2018, I was still doing an HR systems analyst role, but I became really interested in diversity and inclusion in employee resource groups. And I was a member of the EDI steering group. So because I had that intersecting identity of being autistic and bisexual and a whole bunch of other characteristics as well, it meant that I could look at things through an intersectional lens and understand the minority stress that you can feel when you have compounding marginalization from different characteristics. So that kind of meant that I was well placed to help that employer at the time with their Stonewall Diversity Champions program, which took us to number 28 in the UK top 100 at that time.
Wow.
I think it was already in the top 100, but way lower down. And I was able to really help drive inclusion with an intersectional lens.
Right.
Wow. That's really cool.
That's like using the fact that you're neurodivergent and that you are LGBTQ plus, like your superpower, which is
kind
phenomenal.
of. Yeah,
phenomenal.
although
It's phenomenal.
It does mean that I'm discriminated against and misunderstood and stigmatized multiple times over, and sometimes for the same thing. So, for instance, if we talk about autistic people masking in the workplace and trying to come across normal with their verbal and non-verbal communication, you might do that if you're queer as well, in any shape or form. So if it's both, then you might be doing that twice over. So how much energy do you have then to be engaged in your role and deliver your best work and to be well in yourself?
Mm.
Yeah.
It isn't the identity that's the problem there. It's just the societal reactions to it.
100%. Cynthia's just put in the comments, Charlie's superpower is that they're awesome. One of my favorite things about Charlie, and Charlie and I have spoken many, many times, is that when you introduce yourself, you use pronouns and your adjectives.
Yeah.
I love it.
Pronouns are
what your
she,
adjectives
they,
are.
them. My adjectives are autistic, ADHD, and awkward as fuck. Yeah.
I just love it. I've seen Charlie talk and introduce herself that way, and it always makes me smile. The awkward as fuck. It's just brilliant. John-Earl, how about you? Has there been a time where it has been easier or more challenging for you because, with your work experience, because of your sexuality?
Yeah, I don't. Not that I've noticed. So I think it's kind of just, as I mentioned earlier, just being sort of knowing that you're coming from a minority background and sort of knowing that there will be people that resonate, but being able to kind of look for those things in organisations, I think is quite a good superpower. So I think, knowing that there are things that potentially we need to look at as an organisation to make sure that people are inclusive, or that we're inclusive and everyone is included. I'm on the diversity committee at work, and it's really, really good to kind of be a part of that and have an input, but be able to support people. I'm actually on the culture and diversity working group that we have, as opposed to our Pride one, and that's a conscious decision that I've made because, I don't know. I kind of know what I would like to see from a Pride point of view, and I'm happy to share that opinion. But ultimately, I don't know if everyone would feel the same. But actually, it's really good to learn a bit more about the different sort of cultures and beliefs that we have within our organisation, and to make sure that they're heard. So we actually work really well as a team. But I don't know. I just think having the background and having the kind of lens, if you like, to be able to see through that and go, actually, this is what we need to work on, and actually we don't do enough of this. We need to focus on that. And I think neurodiversity, as we've kind of touched on, is one of those things that all workplaces need to do huge amounts of work on. It's I think we're becoming more and more open, and we're having more and more conversations about sort of minority groups. But I think that is, whilst this is, we're also talking about LGBT sort of issues, but I think that is something that we need to look at, and there are sort of statistics that I've seen that there are huge chunks of the LGBT community that are neurodivergent as well, and we need to really, really support them and make sure they've got a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a Venn diagram where the circles almost overlap.
Yeah, exactly. And we really need to make sure that, if those people that don't feel like they are able to sort of have a voice, obviously I know that can be really uncomfortable for people. We need to make sure that we're standing up for them, and organisations are doing what they need to support those people.
And by complete coincidence, we actually have another webinar tomorrow where we're looking at neuro-inclusion in the workplace. And Charlie is back again tomorrow.
Thursday.
Sorry, it's Thursday. I keep saying tomorrow and it's Thursday.
You can tell which one of us is autistic and which one is ADHD.
100%. John-Earl, let me stay with you actually, because there was something you said back there. You said that you are on the diversity committee at work. Was that something that you chose to do, or were you volunteered for it? Because I do think sometimes people get expected to go to for everything.
My story is slightly different. So I work as kind of the sole HR person on a particular site. There's a bigger team on another site, and there's only sort of 70 odd people that work on my particular site. So all of these sort of events and things like that, it is part of my job description to support with them. I wasn't, it sort of happened quite quickly. It was like, oh, we've got this meeting, would you like to join? So it felt a little bit like it was, an expectation was what it was, but I was also aware that it was part of my job role, and I'm okay with that. I'm happy. I'm someone that will offer an opinion, and I think I come from a good sort of background to be able to sort of support those things anyway. So yeah, my story is slightly different, but I can imagine that there are lots of organisations where it's like, oh, you're in HR, you need to do this, and it becomes almost an expectation. And there have been sort of times where I felt like it, if I don't do it, it's not going to happen. But I think that's partly just because of the role that I'm in, being sort of sole HR on site.
That's a really good point, actually, because I hadn't thought about the HR element as well there. But I've got friends who, because they're gay, that they have been expected to be involved and expected to be like the flag bearers for that in their organisation. I have another friend, this is race rather than sexuality, but I have another friend who was put on all of the literature for her company's diversity because she's Indian, and they didn't even tell her. They put her picture out there, and she messaged me and she was like, oh my God, they've done this because I'm brown. And I said, you're the only non-white senior manager they've got. And she went, they should have asked me. And I went, I 100% agree. And she says, they should recruit more printers with
Promote more, yeah.
And she's just like, I don't want to be the poster girl.
Wow.
But but you didn't even ask me, and that blows my mind. And so, but I've spoken to people in the LGBTQ community as well who've said the same thing. Like, everybody thinks that I want to be, the standard bearer, and I want to, be really vocal about this. And actually, I don't necessarily want to.
It's like wheeling out the wheelchair user on International Day of Persons with Disabilities, isn't it?
There's so much wrong with it. Could you imagine if you were sort of open at work but not open sort of at home, and someone did that sort of plastered your photo of where as the kind of the gay icon or token within that organisation, and it's like, sorry, that could have been so awkward.
But I think there's loads of beliefs there, isn't there? So I remember once in an organisation I worked in many moons ago, asking to be part of the women's network, to be an ally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was refused, and I went, wow. So is the network is it a closed group? Is that what he's telling me? Well, no, you're not a woman. Right, but it doesn't stop me being an ally, does it? Mm-hmm. So you're telling me I can't be an ally. So have we got straight people in the LGBTQ plus network? And they were like, well, yeah, of course, because that's proper allyship, isn't it? And I'm like, no. You're not getting the idea of allyship, are you? And this was like, this is an EDI person, and I'm like,
they really? Need allyship training.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I developed some of that in that role I was talking about before as well.
Yeah, and actually the LGBTQ plus community is really weak, I think, in my personal experience, at being allies. So the reality is that there's huge amounts of homophobia and transphobia within the LGBTQ plus community as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because of those social norms where people grow up thinking that being gay is wrong in that family setting, and then realizing that they are gay themselves, but then self-deprecating and reflect that onto their community.
Internalized homophobia.
Massive. And I suffer with it, and I know I suffer with it, which means I check myself and I check my privilege, so to speak, when thinking about things. But what really scares me at the moment is the amount of transphobia that's just within general mainstream thing. And I think it's really important. Yes, it doesn't affect me. I'm a gay man. It doesn't affect me. But it did once. And, you look at the history of Pride and the purpose that we now have a month, God, I remember as a kid watching the TV and watching the tombstone of the AIDS advert and everything. And, talking to my nephews and nieces about this and stuff, and younger people, even my partner doesn't remember it, really? Did that happen? Like, yes, it really did. And the whole HIV and AIDS thing was completely blamed at gay men's door. It wasn't the knowledge that we have now, and unidentifiable means you can't pass it on. It's not the death sentence it was.
The press calls it the gay virus.
Yeah, they did. Absolutely they did. Absolutely they did. And like when you watch movies like Pride, and interestingly, on the TV at the moment, because it's Pride Month, there's loads of LGBTQ plus movies that are out there, and that's great. And if anybody can watch Pride, watch it. It's about the lesbian and gay group that supported the miners through the miners' strike.
It's really good. It's a very, very good film.
I've heard of that.
You've got this lesbian and gay group in London that decided that as a minority group and somebody who was punished by the state. You talk about Section 28. You talk about the conversations and speeches that Margaret Thatcher made, and just societal viewpoint on LGBTQ plus people in general. And this group decided to go to this really small Welsh mining village, and it's a true story, and it's just so powerful. They went to this small mining village in the middle of Wales and they fundraised loads of money. They fundraised thousands and thousands of pounds, and this is like in the early 80s. And they supported this mining community so much so that actually the miners' union were the first to pass LGBTQ plus protections. They were the ones that drove the government to make change in law about LGBTQ plus people, and they turned up en masse in, I want to say, like 1984, 83, 84, 85 to London Pride to support their lesbians and gays, support the miners group. And it's really powerful. And one of those people that did that was one of the first people to ever be diagnosed with HIV. He was number 3, and he's still alive today. A really inspirational man. But it's such a powerful story and just shows the stigma and the challenge that people had in those days. But that still continues today. And that's what frightens me. All the stuff about transphobia at the moment and the lack of allyship, absolute lack of allyship, not just from LGBTQ plus people, but straight people that believe it's wrong. The fear of speaking out, it's exactly like it was in the 80s for gay people and lesbians. It's exactly the same as the tyranny that was spouted in the 30s about Jewish people and all that sort of stuff, and it's just absolutely frightening. It frightens me. It really because this is a societal change. You go back 5 years ago, there wasn't the noise, there wasn't the negativity regarding the trans community.
It's stirred up by politicians and the media.
Absolutely. And, the thought of telling somebody what toilet they can use.
A tiny, vulnerable community have been vilified and scapegoated for the real problems in the world. And it's really up to us, the rest of the community, to throw our support behind the trans and non-binary community, even if that means we get trolled and caught in the crossfire. If none of the stones are hurting you, then you're not. If none of them is hitting you, you're not doing enough.
It's
protect
horrendous.
that
It's horrendous.
marginalised group.
I still hear Rishi Sunak standing up saying men are men, or women are women, and it haunts me to this day. I absolutely hate it. It made my blood boil. I wanted him to be arrested. I wanted us to overthrow the government at that point. I think it's absolutely disgusting that, you know, someone who can call themselves a leader of a nation can stand up and say such hatred, such vile. It really, really makes my blood boil. And I think we are losing, as a community, we are losing momentum when it comes to sort of rights and things like that. And it's not, you know, it is. I'm completely agree. We really need to support our trans friends at this time, because it is, you know, imagine hearing all these things and going through all these things, because you know, I mean, I was working at an organisation when Rishi Sunak made those comments, and I emailed the HR team at the time and said, I think we should send out a message just to say, look, you know, we don't necessarily support that, and, you know, we're here for you and this, that and the other. And I kind of got a generic response back, which was a bit frustrating. But yeah, as a community, we do need to stand up more than ever. I mean, if you look at just in the media now at the moment, the amount of sort of big American companies, I'm talking like BMW and Apple, that used to every month at Pride Month. I know it's a bit of a token thing, sort of changing your logo, but it does kind of send that message of support. They're not doing it now because they're scared that we're all more right wing, and, you know, of who's in power. And I think we are in huge danger. We're going down and down in terms of the grading of, you know, on the I think it's at the Rainbow Europe website. You know, if you have a look at in the last sort of, you know, 20 or probably less than 20 years, with 10 years more importantly, we're dropping down in that. We are, you know, we're just like 40%. We really need to stand up and make,
There's a rise in fascism, let's call it what it is, and you need to rally together and combat that.
We really do. And we need our allies to stand up as well. You know, now more than ever, do we need our allies to stand up and say, you know, enough is enough, and we need to, as you say, we need to fight back, and we need to show that support. And I think for me personally, it starts with trans people. I think they are the most vulnerable within our community at this moment in time, I feel. You know, I'm not a massive one to attend loads of Pride events, but I'm going to our local Pride this year, and I'm you know, going to, if I can, I want to wear transgender colours, because I really want to show my support, and I think it's hugely important that, you know, everyone does that. And I would urge any people that are sort of in charge of these things and organisations that might watch this podcast, I would ask you, where possible, to really, really support anyone in your organisation that's trans, and just to keep sending positive messages that people, you know, can feel safe within that organisation.
It's something that's absolutely, I mean, it's made me so furious, the Supreme Court ruling a few months ago and the backlash to that. And I have a trans friend who's going to be on the panel on Friday's discussion, Kate, and the impact that this has had on her in terms of going out. And, you know, I'm so tired of everybody talking about the public toilet issue, because there's so much more to it than just bloody toilets. I mean, but even something as fundamental as using the bathroom now holds more fear for people than it did before. And, you know, what the hell is this? 2025, for crying out loud. We're like, I literally saw on Instagram today, I don't know if you saw, it was a video, a woman who's a barrister, a trans woman who's a barrister, and basically catcalled and heckled when she tried to use the women's loo in Parliament. Because
Robin White, was it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually asked the staff if it was okay if she used the ladies' toilet, and they said, yes, it is. And then there were two women's group activists, TERFs, or nasty cows, TERFs, who stood outside the toilet screaming obscenities through the door at her while she was using the loo. And you're like, good God, these are grown adults. They should be locked up. It's absolutely appalling. And I literally saw that on Instagram today. And you just think, how did it get to this?
It's not helping anyone either, because if you're, say, a butch lesbian who could be mistaken for a trans woman, if you don't fit the societal idea of a typical woman, I don't know, then you can get accosted in the same way. So it's feeding right into the patriarchy.
But I think the interesting thing is as well, it's the same type of behaviours of when we allow gay couples to adopt. When that was all going through and stuff, you know, well, why do they want to adopt? So in exactly the same as, well, why do they want to use the female toilets if they're a trans woman? It's like, because They do.
Neither we.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I mean, the last time I checked, women's toilets generally have cubicles, do they not?
Yeah,
so what difference does it make?
Exactly.
Honestly, what difference does it make? And and it's difficult. Maybe I need to put my a 360 perspective on. I'm not a woman, so I don't know what that feels like. But ultimately, no one seems to be caring about the trans people and what they're feeling. How do they feel? They must feel really vulnerable going into toilets at the best of time anyway. Especially those maybe that might be sort of pre-op. They might be feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So what about them? It's just such an easy solution. Just have single cubicle toilets that you can shut with a wash basin and a hand dryer in.
Gender neutral,
like at home.
It's why do we have to put a gender on a toilet? It's a toilet. It's an inanimate object. The same with clothes. The same with colours. Boys don't have to wear blue. Girls don't have to wear pink. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Why are we putting sexes on inanimate objects?
Charlotte has just put something in the chat which is hilarious, actually, and actually completely to the point. If men wanted to attack women in toilets, they don't need to pretend to be a trans to do it. Absolutely, they don't, and that's the reality, isn't it? We are fearful of the smallest, and I mean the smallest minority. And what people have done, that fascism idea has taken that very small issue and elevated it to a huge issue that just isn't an issue. It petrifies me. We've completely gone off topic.
If
but
they're
I think
so worried about trans women using the ladies' toilets and that posing a safety risk, they're not actually scared of trans women. They're scared of predatory cisgender men.
Yes, 100%. And the thing is as well, it is trans women getting singled out here because trans men going into men's toilets.
Not a problem.
The idea of some of the trans men that I follow on Instagram are more ripped than, they're really ripped, and they look if they have to start going and using ladies' toilets again, that's going to scare the living crap out of people. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it is. I feel like most of, and this is uneducated, and please pull me up if I'm wrong, but I feel like a disproportionate amount of transphobia is directed towards trans women.
Yes.
No one's complaining about trans men in sport because they're not threatening cis men in sport from a physicality perspective, which is their argument. So it's very disproportionate. I don't know if you saw Cynthia's comment just now, and this is many things that Cynthia has said to me in the couple of conversations that we've had have just blown my mind. But
Cynthia is amazing.
Cynthia is wonderful. So Cynthia said, I carry my birth certificate updated due to gender recognition, GRA, and all of my paperwork and body aligns. So how are they going to decide? But why should anybody have to carry their birth certificate with them?
You can pee next to me any day, Cynthia.
You can pee next to me any day. But it's, I remember Cynthia telling me when we did our Trans Day of Inclusivity webinar that she had to come out 700 times in the first year after she transitioned and told her organisation that this was happening 700 times. So basically every single person that she spoke to or met, she had to go through it all again. And again, that just blows my mind. It's just like, that's not right. Yeah. It's just not right. But, right.
I do wonder if it is a lack of understanding or a lack of willingness to understand, because I think when you look at, possibly all of, I would say potentially all of the different kind of sexualities that we have, I think, when it comes to sort of trans people, it is very, very different. It's very, I would say, even for myself, whilst I'm really open-minded and I don't know what it must feel like to feel like you're not the sex that you should be.
We don't have to relate to their experience, though, to see their humanity and to accept them as human beings.
But I wonder if it's a lack of understanding that where people just go, no, I'm not, I'm not willing to shift. I don't get it. Mindset. No, I don't understand it. No. No, it's the same thing with pronouns.
You see that with non-binary people as well. If they don't understand how you could feel both sexes or neither or somewhere in between, then they're not doing that. It's just like the person knows themselves better than you ever will. So just deal with it.
Yeah,
I think one of the best things I got told, and it was from a trans friend, who she's an amazing person, and I was really inquisitive. I was really inquisitive, and still am, about everything. And so, I was talking to her and said, when did you know? Exactly the same that happens to me, to be fair, as a gay man. When did you know you were gay? When did you know you were trans? And, and all this, that, and the other. And it was really, she said, you're the first person that spoke to me about it and asked these sort of questions. You've not shied away from it. You've not gone, oh, type thing. And I said, well, I'm never going to shy away from it. And she went through this massive transition and lost huge amounts of weight, and then didn't. Well, I don't know really. We've never really discussed it, but she, she is a she, her, and a they, them, and her name is Alice, but she still has the form of her previous gender that she was assigned at birth. But she's just inspirational to me, and I think really brave to go through to actually take that step and be that not it's not non-conforming, but do you know what I mean, to take that step and take herself out of a zone where she could have lived life, but at the same time living a lie, to take that step. And I suppose it's the same for every LGBTQ plus person. I'm from a heavy Catholic background and stuff, and for me to come out when I did, interestingly, you would think that my father had the biggest issue, but he didn't. It was my mother who didn't talk to me for 3 months. But my dad, being the patriarch of the family and stuff, and everything, just said, well, as long as you're happy, I really don't care. And I think that is the underlying message. And I think, the other thing that my father once said to me was, we're only sent things that are difficult because we can deal with them, and it stops somebody else from suffering. And I think if we all did a bit more of that, and we all treated some of our frustrations or misunderstanding with kindness, crikey, the world would be such a better place, wouldn't it?
Cynthia is firing all of the great questions off over there. Why do we come out? The £1 billion question each of us have to answer.
Yeah.
Go for it. Why did you feel you needed to come out?
So I came out when I came out properly to people when I was probably about 17. I came out to my parents last. And I can remember telling my brother and sister first, and friends and stuff, and work colleagues. I actually told work colleagues before I told my mum and dad. It's awful, isn't it? But I was really fearful, and I think you are absolutely right. Why do we have to come out? We don't, and that's the reality, because nobody should assume, and we should be comfortable enough and safe enough to be able to not have to come out. However, I think everybody's got a story about how it came about, and it does. My coming out was really good. As much as my mum didn't talk to me for 3 months, that wasn't a bad thing. Both of my parents have loved every single one of my partners, and my current partner, James, who is just the most amazing human being and individual, and I know I will never find anybody that loves me more, type thing. He helped look after me when I was really poorly, but he helped nurse my father and stuff. And don't get me wrong, he's a nurse, so it's a super skill of his, but he didn't bat an eyelid when Dad needed a shower and everything before he died, and helped nursing him on his deathbed. And the lovely thing is that my parents just treat James, as they do with all of their in-law children, like their own. And so Dad was this really strong, stable Irish Catholic man with a strong faith, and worked in industry and construction and stuff. Very clever man, worked across the whole world. But the one thing he always insisted is that we always kissed. And my dad always kissed me on the lips, and the same for my sister and my brother. other people, on the side of the face and stuff. But you never kiss my dad on the side of the face. It was just one of those things. And towards the end of his life, he did exactly the same with James. And it wasn't weird. Wow. It was just to say, I love you. And actually, 2 months, me and James are not married. We've been together 14 years. 2 months before my dad died, my dad sat down with him and said, when are you going to make an honest man out of him? And I never thought that would come out of my dad's mouth.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
It just sounds like a lovely man.
It's the most amazing.
James and your dad, actually.
No, yeah. My dad was the most amazing man. The most amazing man that taught me so much about just being kind to people. That's all that matters.
It's so nice. And again, John, I'm not going to make any assumptions about your age, but given that you remember the Tombstone advert and I do, I'm guessing you're probably similar sort of age to me. There are a lot of people of our generation whose coming out story was nothing like as smooth as that, and people who were alienated from their families. I do feel it has got, well, it depends on the family. I do feel it's got a little easier for people. And I have a 19-year-old niece who came out as lesbian. She calls herself queer. And we had this debate in the WhatsApp, didn't we?
Yeah.
The younger generation seem to be very comfortable with queer.
My daughters identify as queer.
What they've done is they've took hold of it. And that's exactly the same as we did with Pufter, with Agaya.
God,
and
I do
stuff
have
like that.
Friends my age that call each other you big Pufter.
Yeah, or your queen, queen.
Yes,
all of that stuff. That's or here she is. Here she is. Look. Here she is. Where's the crown? Can't see her. Type thing. That's what we do. But you took ownership of it. Faggot. Things like that. That people would think, oh my God, they're the most. But we took ownership of that, and that's exactly what the younger generation have done.
Yes.
I find it really difficult with queer because that was the offensive term. That was the thing that got you in here because it inferred that something wasn't right with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely understand that.
Whereas now, and I'm pleased to say, the younger generation of the gayers and the LGBTQ plus community have took ownership of it and they own it. And they wear it with a badge of pride. And absolutely they should do. Because the moment we do that, we take the weakness out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's a useful term as well, I think. I mean, I'm 49, so I'm no youngster, but I use it as well. And it's
because Charlie, so I forget.
Yeah. It's such a vague term. You're not pigeonholing yourself in any way. So we use it to be gender expansive as well as not pigeonholing ourselves into a sexual orientation or a romantic orientation, because people forget as well that attraction isn't all about sexual attraction. It can be about romantic attraction too.
And that's quite interesting on Friday because Katie Allen, who's on the panel, is pan-romantic and asexual. And that was a first time for me meeting somebody who is, well, I've met people who are pan-romantic before, but I hadn't met anyone that was asexual before. And that really is probably the smallest group in the kind of LGBTQIA plus. Really interesting. So, because I don't know. I just think I think a lot of people don't even realise.
It's quite common in the autistic community, actually.
Oh, that is interesting. And also actually not that surprising at the same time. But I've got way off topic here.
Can I just touch base? Can I just go back to one thing you mentioned about sort of coming out, and we think it's getting better. I just want to touch because AKT is a charity. I don't know if everyone's heard of it, but they're a charity that kind of specialise in looking after young people in the gay community, and basically 24% of homeless people aged between 16 to 25 identify as queer, for want of a better term, if you don't like that. And I think that's really important to touch on. And a lot of that is because they are sort of kicked out from their homes because people don't like it, or they feel, or they're fearful of their families disowning them because of that. And I think it's really important to highlight that, because whilst I think there is a perception that things are getting better, quite often people say to me, "Oh, it's so much easier for you now." Do you know, I will not walk down the street holding my husband's hand. He would love me to, because he's so much stronger than I am, and I look up to him from that point of view, because I wish I had the energy to sit on social media and battle the trolls and things. I can't. I have to switch off from it because I just can't. I'm too sensitive. But I can't do it because I am petrified that the one time that we do, someone's going to say something, or someone's going to do something, and I would rather sadly not do that and know that I'm going to be okay and not have to wake up in hospital or whatever. There is still so much hatred out there, and there's still so much spitefulness. I looked on Facebook recently when Sainsbury's changed their logo over for Pride Month, and the comments on there absolutely vile still to this day. There are, sadly, the older generation are not doing enough education, I think, with the younger generation, because I think a lot of Gen Z people, if you talk to them, are actually really open-minded and really don't mind. And I think we're really fortunate about that, and that's who we need to kind of pass the torch on to.
The volume of social media negative comments there is misleading, because the trolls all agree with each other, and reasonable people don't get involved.
That's right. And those, the people that are meant to control that, I mean, we already know from history on LinkedIn of people being in prison and bits and pieces. I won't mention that, but we know that the algorithms, the AI that's used to kind of police this isn't correct. I mean, I have submitted reports for the most blatant racism or homophobia, people that I've seen videos with machete attacks and all sorts of things just should not be on there, and they just come back and say it doesn't breach our community standards. Then you need to have a look at your community standards. You really do, because it's wrong.
Yeah. 100%.
Can I squeeze my coming out and going back
Please
in?
Please do.
Yeah. So I was 16 when I came out as being bi, when I realised that it wasn't the same for everyone else. I'd always assumed it was. I thought people were potentially attracted to anyone, and they just married someone of the opposite sex to have a baby. But I didn't realise it wasn't that common to be attracted to everyone. So I came out anyway, because I wanted to potentially have girlfriends as well as boyfriends. Didn't know about non-binary people in those days. So that was okay. But then in my HR career, I ended up going back in the closet. And this is because of people gossiping about me at work and discriminating against me and making incorrect assumptions. So I worked in HR. My colleagues also worked in HR. And I have to add here, this was a long time ago, and none of the people involved still work at that organisation. But I couldn't even make friends with a female colleague from the London office without accusations of me overstepping personal and professional boundaries. Now, I had quite a major trauma and a period of time off work with depression. And I came back and found myself in a disciplinary meeting because I'd apparently overstepped a boundary. And it was literally just with somebody that I was being friendly to, but in a clumsy, autistic way. So that's what I'm talking about by the compounding, marginalising characteristics. A lot of people hear you're bisexual and assume that you're a swinger, assume that you want to get into their pants. They think, why is she even telling me unless she's trying to get into my pants? Or worse, you don't tell them and you make a female friend, and then they're like, why didn't she tell me? She's trying to get close and then let me know. So there's so many very destructive and biphobic assumptions that happen. And it took me a full 10 years to work out why I came back from depression after like quite a late miscarriage, actually quite a messy, traumatic time, to find myself being disciplined for something I've never done. And friends at the time told me what had happened, and they were all going around interviewing people, trying to find out the truth of it without ever telling me what was going on. And I worked in HR. So I deleted my sexuality from the HR system because I didn't want people looking it up, and shoved myself firmly back in the closet, only to come back out eventually many years later when those people had left. And this is I need to give you a trigger warning here, but this involves child death and suicide. So I lost my eldest child, Iggy, to suicide when he was 15. And he was autistic like me, and he was also gay, and he was also gender questioning. But he'd got bullied at school for being weird and different and girly. And eventually he ended his life. So I decided right then that I was going to be open about all of my marginalising characteristics. I read a blog from Stonewall about top 10 reasons that you should be a visible role model and how to achieve that. And that's what I do. So I will still get people trolling me, and I'll probably get accused of all kinds of things. I've been called a groomer when I've been taking my kids to Pride. Yeah, I can't even influence them to put their cereal bowls in the dishwasher, let alone how to identify. But people still think it's down to me. But as long as there's breath in my body, I will keep trying to destigmatize and promote acceptance and inclusion and compassion and love for everyone on the LGBTQIA plus rainbow and neurodivergent people. Sorry, Kirsty.
I'm
giving you a trigger warning, but not a tears warning.
I already know that.
Yeah, with all of our...
And it's still, yeah.
So
that's exactly why we need to stand up as a community. Exactly why we all need to stand up, because it's just not acceptable. How can anyone have to go through that? Anybody, and then look what you feel like you now have to do this, and I'm
make the world a better place for my daughters who are also neurodivergent and queer. Yeah. It has to be. We can't carry on like this. It's not good enough.
We can't.
People need to get better, and I'll do what little I can to help.
You're doing a lot. You are doing a lot, and it's something I feel so strongly about. Nobody should have to go through anything like that. I don't. No. I'm lost for words.
What an amazing person.
Acceptance and compassion and love, whatever their characteristics.
We're
all humans.
Yeah. None of these things hurt other people or affect other people. And so they really shouldn't even have a view other than just allow people to be who they are.
Deal with it. That's what my Jay says.
I love that. Deal with it.
Yeah. We're built diff. Deal with it. The Gen Z approach.
Cynthia has a trademarked expression that she uses, acceptance without understanding. And I love that, because it's like you were saying earlier, you don't have to understand it. It's but accepting it is absolutely, just accept people for who they are. It doesn't.
I think, like we've said, though, it's the smallest minority of people that don't.
Yeah, I hope so.
But they have so much of a view.
They seem to have the loudest voice. I think that's the saddest thing.
Very vocal minority who shout their views all over media. And easily led people quite often listen to them. So we need to pull together and counter this.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's funny with I've always been a little bit eye-rolly at the companies changing their logo to rainbow just for 1 month and then changing back. But because I think it was something you said earlier, John, about what's happened in the States, actually this year I think it means more. Because if they've done it this year, despite everything that's happened in the States and with the Supreme Court ruling here, then that actually does speak volumes about that organisation to me. I wonder. I wonder. I mean, let's finish up, because I know we're pretty much out of time. Let's finish up and I'd love to know for each of you, what Pride, does it mean anything to you? Pride Month, is it important to you? Do you go to any of the marches? I mean, just talk me through what it means to you. Do you want to go first, John?
So, interestingly, I don't go to Pride. The only time I do is when I'm volunteering with an organisation to provide the medical cover. because it's fantastic, and I've done it many years, watching from the sidelines, so to speak, doing the medical cover and stuff. But I don't
very important job. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't feel like I need it to confirm for me. But pride for me isn't it's not just an LGBTQ plus thing anymore. It's everybody, and it's a celebration that anybody can be who they want to be. And actually, we've just got to be kind to each other. That's the message it gives to me. And to hear the trolling and the things, and the fear, it's just really sad. It's really sad. I live a very conservative life, you would say. You would think, I'm in different organisations and do a lot of charity work and stuff, because I think it's really important to give back into community. I'm a Mason, and I'm proud to be a Mason. Some people would find that a real issue. The reality is, it's one of the safest places I've ever felt. As an out gay man, it's one of the safest places I've ever felt. I'm a reservist and volunteer with the Army Cadet Force and stuff like that. Again, the Army, you would think an institutionalised organisation. They do more than I have ever seen in my life, and are more accepting than anywhere I've seen in my life. I'm a volunteer for St John Ambulance. I've got it in. There you go. I tried not to say it earlier, but I'm a volunteer and a senior volunteer with St John Ambulance, and have been for the best part of 30 years. Again, I've never felt safer. And my current workplace, accept me for who I am, love me for who I am, and I'm really lucky to have that experience. But I think the overall thing for me, pride, is about kindness. And it's just, if it makes somebody happy and has no impact on you, then why wouldn't we?
Yeah. John-Earl, how about you?
So I'm going to do this really quickly because I'm appreciative of time, but I'm just going to say I wrote pride as an acronym, and I've got please, recognise, inclusivity, diversity and equality.
Cool.
Nice. Charlie?
So I have done every Birmingham and London Pride since Ziggy died, and it empowers my kids to be themselves. So they wear their queerness as a badge of honour, and they shout loud and proud about it, and it makes me full of hope that they will be okay.
I love that. I have to say I've been in London for Pride only on 2 occasions, and they were probably 2 of the most joyful and loving days out, and absolutely hilarious fun days out that I have ever had. It's like the whole of London gets taken over by people who are marching. But what I find is really, really brilliant is afterwards.
Yeah.
And then it's just like...
Yeah, I've got to hotel the night
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we were, by complete coincidence, when I was living in the States, we happened to be back in London, and I think it was 2018. And on the same day, The Cure were playing Hyde Park. It was the London Pride, and there was an England game on, either the Euros or the World Cup. And I think that was the day I saw London at its best. Just absolutely phenomenal atmosphere, and it was really good weather. Absolutely phenomenal atmosphere. But I loved it. I loved Pride. I loved the diversity of the people on the floats and who were in the parade and everything. When I say diversity, I mean, you've got huge organisations. Yeah. I mean, Keir Starmer, back when he was the leader of the opposition, he was marching. Sadiq Khan was there. I mean, I don't think they'd be welcome this year, quite honestly.
The major Pride banned politicians.
Yes, fair. But back then, okay. But the very start of the parade was all the bikers. And it was wonderful, like all these Harleys and these like big hairy biker dudes, and then there was a lesbian biker gang, and I was just like, oh, this is just amazing.
Life,
but it was just so joyous, just so.
Joyous. It would be remiss of me not to mention that Proud HR, who I'm a member of, who are an evolving HR provider as well. Yes. They have a presence at London Pride this year. I think we've got 75 wristbands. So if anyone here is looking for someone to march with, you can apply to march with Proud HR on their website, proudhr.co.uk.
Yeah, and if you're not aware of Proud HR, then do definitely look them up.
There's a few of us here I see in the comments.
That's a wonderful bunch of people. Everybody I've spoken to who's involved with them has just been great. So thank you. This has been a roller coaster of emotions, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I thank you, the three of you, so much for doing this. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you have. I hope that people got something useful out of it, and thank you to all of you for the comments throughout and the questions that you've asked. I will get the recording of this sent out to everybody that registered, and it will go up on the Evolving HR app for anybody who wants to watch the recording later. So thank you very much, and we'll be back on Thursday to talk about neurodiversity, and then we'll be back on Friday to do the second one of these Pride panels. So lovely. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having
us. Thank you.